All right, so I'm live. So, as I always do, I'm going to ask the viewers to tell me in the live chat if they can hear me properly. Do you hear me properly, folks? Let me know. Let me know, folks. Let me know. Oh, good. Someone hears me. I'm going to wait one more minute before more viewers respond. So within 40 seconds, I'll begin with the teaching. So hold on. Okay, just 20 seconds, and I'll continue. All right. Thank you for being with me in this live stream. The sound's working, so I can just begin teaching. Normally, it would take like 5 or 8 minutes before I begin, but okay. In this video, or as a live stream, I want to talk about outsmarting demonic patterns and paranormal timing. This is a message that I've given to you through my videos repeatedly that it's important to notice patterns and especially to pay attention to the timing when things happen. Today, there was this incident with, not really with the believer himself, but one of my British subscribers and fellow believer had an attack in his family. One of the relatives is now in the hospital. And this happened right at the time that he was praying, fasting, and doing what he had to do. And he often experiences attacks upon himself or his family when he is doing what he's supposed to do spiritually. So I discussed the matter with the believer. It remained confidential, but what I noticed is that there was a pattern involved. Now, the believer in question knows who he is, so if he's watching here, I'm glad you're watching the live stream. In this live stream, I'm going to talk about patterns and timing. Because this is a message that believers ought to hear over and over again. This is a message that will never expire until Christ returns. So, about timing. First, let me read something from time for. Hold on. I don't want the NIV, but I'm going to change it to the King James. That's the King James version, yes, here. So we're going to read this scripture together. Hold on. One background about the book of Ecclesiastes. The book of Ecclesiastes was written by King Solomon when he was in his old age, after he rejected trusting God. So the book of Ecclesiastes is a pagan book because Solomon turned to paganism, and the life lessons in the book of Ecclesiastes show you how life will be, well, life if you are not trusting God. It shows the cynicism and bitterness will develop of not trusting on God. So beware with reading the book of Ecclesiastes and agreeing with what's written there. Some of the things written in the book of Ecclesiastes are profitable to learn from them concerning what you shouldn't do as a believer. So I come to read a part from the book of Ecclesiastes that has been abused and misused very often by churches. And this part is keeping a lot of people in bondage. So I'm going to clarify it for you. Okay. We started chapter 3. I'm going to read from verse 1 to verse 8. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up what has been planted, which is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to rent, and a time to sue. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time of war, and a time of peace. Now, this is pagan philosophy right over here. So what's recorded here in the Old Testament, in the book of Ecclesiastes, is the philosophy of pagans. Pagans believe in the universe having cycles. That's what pagans believe. And pagans believe that to make use of the cycles of the universe, you need to be in tune with the flow of the universe. That is what pagans believe. And the gods, or better said, evil spirits they worship, are there as guides to guide them in taking advantage of the alleged cycles of the universe. That's why pagans worship the earth. They call it Mother Earth, because the earth, the soil, is categorized as female and the sky as male. This is, well, in symbolic speaking, this is accurate because women are like a soil because babies grow in them, and men are like the sky where the sun is shining because the males give the drive to life. So in symbology, they're correct, but they go so far that they worship the elements. They worship water, trees, or better said, forests. They worship the sky. They worship the stars. They worship the created above the creator. And again, their belief is just like a woman has monthly cycles, the universe also has cycles, and you just need to get along with the cycles, and then you can use those cycles in your advantage. And this is what Solomon was speaking about here. So what's written here in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1 to 8 is not something believers should agree with. But in Babylon churches, which are pagan, they believe wholly. Not wholly of real holy, but they believe wholly, completely in what Solomon wrote here. And shortly after Solomon wrote that, he wrote the following: What profit had he that worketh in that wherein he labored? So he has this depressive attitude in what he's writing. So I'm not going to read too much of it, but just understand that this cyclical thinking is pagan. Okay? So this pagan thinking of everything has its time is recorded in scripture, but not for us to agree with it. Because this would imply that creation is above the creator. And if that's the case, that means that we are doomed to the cycles of creation. And that means that evil spirits have an advantage over us in creation because they are more in tune with the so-called universal cycles. That's why when pagans talk, they say it's like the universe is guiding you this and that because they believe in this cyclical way of thinking. Believers need to forfeit this cyclical thinking because it's this cyclical thinking that keeps many of us doomed in cycles and patterns that destroy us. So, again, it's written in the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 3, but just because it's written there doesn't mean we should agree with it. For example, Solomon said there that the human beings are beasts. He said that, well, we're all going to die anyway. So it's a very sad, nihilistic, bitter, cynical book. Where's the joy of the Lord? Where is any reference to the Christ to come? Just realize not everything recorded in the Bible is meant for you to agree with it. So, do you all understand what I just explained? Let me know in the live chat because this is very important for you to understand before I continue with the rest. Let me know. Okay, now we'll continue. So, okay, let me just put the book of Ecclesiastes. And I know how much. The book of Ecclesiastes ends with the conclusion of the matter that Solomon spun upon: fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all men. Hold on. God has not given us a spirit of fear, so why does he command us to fear? And he says, for God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. But didn't he just say in his book that everything is vanity, that the righteous has no advantage above the wicked? And now he concludes this, so the whole book of Ecclesiastes, the author is contradicting himself. I don't even know why the book of Ecclesiastes is in the Old Testament to begin with. Probably it's there as a reminder to us not to turn to paganism, because it will not work out in the long run. That means after its body expires. Now, okay. About paranormal, I'll say, timing. There's one thing you need to understand about evil spirits. And I'm going to read with you from King James Version, so I'm happy with that. Okay. Maybe I should read. Okay, I'm going to read this one here. In Revelation chapter 12, it talks about there was a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. This refers to the Israelite nation that gave birth to Christ. Later, the woman becomes symbol to the believers. We know that. But I'm going to talk about this here. And there was another wonder in heaven. And behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on his head. That's a symbol that's symbol for Lucifer. the fallen cherub. Okay, we know that. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, that's 1/3 of the heavenly beings, and did cast them to the earth. So 1/3 of the heavenly beings became corrupt. They followed Satan. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. Look at this. When was the dragon standing before the woman? When? When she was ready to be delivered. What? She was ready to give birth to her child. So, when she was in the season of birthing her child, it's then that the enemy appeared. And believers understand this. This woman here in this symbol of Revelation refers to believers. So it also refers to you. Anytime you are about to go through a breakthrough, know that the enemy will be present. Why? Because his demons keep track of everything. And when they realize, oh, John is about to get a miracle now, or John is about to have a breakthrough now, oh, they'll be there. Why did he send for woman for to devour her child as soon as it was born? And that's the enemy's purpose in all of our lives, believers. He wants to devour whatever we're bringing forth. Whether it's a family, a marriage, or whether it's healing to a community, he wants to be there to devour it. Okay, and let's read further. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. Refers to Christ. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. We're not going into this part of prophecy now. But look at this. And there was war in heaven. Michael, that's one of the heavenly princes, and his angels fought against the dragon, that's Satan, and the dragon fought and his angels. They certainly thought they could take over God's throne. They should have known that it could never ever work. And they prevailed not. Duh. Neither was their place found anymore in heaven. Of course not. Reprobate beings who spread filth have no place in the heavens. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan. Satan means accuser, which deceiveth the whole world. Oh, listen to this. He deceives the whole world. That's what the enemy is doing. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels cast out with him. So they're homeless entities now. That's it. And heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accuses them before our God day and night. Accusation is the core and the root of Satan's grip on the human population. Where did he accuse them? Before the Most High. Okay, so this being Satan, he has no shame at all. Well, there is a type of shame he has, but we're not going into that now. And they, that's believers, overcame him, that's Satan, by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto death. This simply means that believers realize that their physical, their mortal bodies was not all there was. They understood that it was their purpose to glorify God in their mortal bodies, but even if it meant, okay, that their mortal bodies would be taken away from them, they realized, okay, so be it. It's not that the believers were willing to die. It's what they realized, okay, physical death is inevitable anyway, and if the Most High allows us to be killed in the process, so be it. Because their attitude was, the Most High will resurrect us anyway. It wasn't believers were clinging onto martyrdom. No, it was that they were they entrusted the Most High so much that they even bothered with physical death, because they knew eventually they'll get a second body anyway. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell within in them. Why? Because heaven is cleansed of wickedness. There's no defect, nor dysfunction, nor any evil in the heavens anymore. Woe to the heavens of the earth and of the sea. Why the sea? Because there are sea Nephilim roaming around in the seas. Now this addresses believers, but it says inhabitants of the earth, because those paranormal entities will hunt anything and anyone just to get their objective met. And their objective is, or better, their aim is, to keep God's will away from the earth realm. For the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath. So he's angry, because he knows that his time he had but a short time. Pay attention to this. He had a short time. So who is the one in a hurry? Who's the one in a hurry, believers? Is it the Most High that's in a hurry? No. The paranormal is in a hurry. Why? They are going to the lake of fire. That means Satan, the fallen angels, as well as the Nephilim spirits, they're going to be put in quarantine for all eternity so that their filth will remain there. But they want as much company as possible. So misery loves company, that's it. And they want to gather as much people before Christ returns. And they don't know when Christ will return. But they know that for them, it's not a long time. For human beings that live for human beings that live less than 200 years now, because since Moses, we only become like 120 years old. So we live less than 200 years. So for us who live less than 200 years, it's a long time. But for the demons who are immortal, it's a short time. So, and when the dragon saw that he was cast into the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. So now it's talking about the believers collectively. And the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a times and half of time from the face of the serpent. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. I'm going to explain this, but I'm going to finish reading it first. And the earth helped the woman, and earth opened her mouth, and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Christ. The remnant of her seed, that's us believers. Because in the beginning of Revelation 12, the woman referred to the nation of Israel, of which the tribe of Judah became the chosen tribe. And from the tribe of Judah, you had the 12 apostles that spread the gospel. And from the Israelites, from the Judeans, you had people that became born again. And also people from the Gentile ethnicities became born again also. So now all believers are considered part of Israel. But whether they are from Israelite descent or not doesn't matter. You are considered one of God's people. That's why it's called a remnant, because of all the Israelites throughout history, it's only a remnant that is born again. Very sad, but that's the case. So the remnant of the Israelites, together with all believers from all other ethnicities, they are God's people. Okay, and God will still use the tribe of Judah, at least the descendants of the tribe of Judah, to do his work, just like he did with the apostles. Okay, so let's explain this flood that the serpent cast out of his mouth. This flood refers to the deceptions that Satan is spewing around. Why? That Satan might cause her, that's the believers, to be carried away of the flood. That's what the enemy wants, for you to be carried away by the flood of lies. Because remember, the serpent is deceiving the whole world. And the earth helps the woman. Now, in the Old Testament, the earth referred to the Israelites, and the seas to the rest of the ethnicities on the earth. And the rest of the world was also considered like wild waves of the sea. That's why it says that the wicked have no peace. But the earth here can simply mean just the earth, reality itself. So whatever this may explain is that the lies of the enemy cannot stand reality. Because all the lies of the enemy go against reality. So eventually, when believers get along with reality as believers should, they escape the flood of lies that comes from the enemy. And why does the enemy spew all this flood out of his mouth? All that garbage is to make war against believers. The testimony of Christ is the gospel, and the commandments refer to the commandments Christ gave in the New Testament. Okay? Because we're under the New Testament. That's what we follow. So, what does this have to do with timing? First, you need to understand that it's Satan that is in a hurry. And because Satan is in a hurry, he wants all of us to be in a hurry. And look at this. I'm going to give an example now. Let's say you have someone that wants to rob a bank. And he knows that every Wednesday at, let me say, every Wednesday between 4 and half 6 p.m., the Federal Reserve comes with a flow of cash. So you know from the Federal Reserve there's going to be a new cash flow to the bank every Wednesday between 4 p.m. and 5:30. Okay? So what do? They know that the next flow of cash is going to be on Wednesday between 4 p.m. and 5:30 p.m. So what are they going to do? They are going to prepare for that big moment when they can come out and steal the money. They don't know the exact moment when the cars will come. It can be at 4 p.m. immediately, but they don't expect that, or it can be around 5:28. They know the season when, they know the timing when the cash flow will come, but they don't know the exact moment when it will come. Okay, so what will they do? What they will do is they will be on the outlook. Let's say they heard this on Friday, the next Wednesday this is going to happen. Friday they heard it, that's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So they have 4 days to prepare. So what are they going to do those 4 days? They're going to be very occupied all those 4 days just to get hints on when the cars with cash are coming. They're not going to sit down and be relaxed, think, you know what? Let's wait till Monday. It's weekend now. Let's go to a party. Let's drink some beer. Let's make out. Go to some prostitutes. And on Monday, when we are fresh and awake, then we're going to see what we're going to do. No. The crime boss is telling his organization, look, next Wednesday, there is this convoy with cash coming to that bank. I want us to be ready to rob that convoy so the money never arrives at the bank. That's how we're going to rob the bank. We can't rob the bank once the cash flow has arrived because the bank is well guarded. So we need to capture the cash flow before it arrives at the bank. So we need to know the route that the convoy will pass so we can check on at which road it will appear. We need to know how the cars look like. We need to get information, details, so that Wednesday in the morning we'll go there so that when the afternoon arrives we are ready. So that when the convoy comes, we rob them. And that's how it is with the enemy. He doesn't know the exact date that Christ will return. Nobody knows. But he knows that there's a season in which he will likely return. Likely. That season can be extended for a long time. He doesn't know. But what Satan wants is that before that time comes, he has hindered as much people as possible from both becoming born again, and if they're born again, from walking Christ's strength. So, the enemy is in a hurry. So that means that evil spirits are diligently working day and night. Remember, they are spirit beings, okay? But they're not spirit beings like we are, that we have bodies that we need to operate in. So they don't have the physical cares we have, so they are awake all the time. So the evil spirits are awake all the time, and they use this being awake 24/7 to work on keeping the masses trapped. So you as an individual believer, you will experience the need to hurry. Not only because you live in a society where there's a 9 to 5 rhythm, but also because you as an individual believer, you have potential. And the enemy wants to frustrate that potential. And because the enemy is on your neck, figuratively speaking, you need to hurry in walking by faith. That's the only hurry believers ought to experience. The hurry, in a sense, they realize, okay, we need to walk by faith to overcome whatever's coming against us. But not that hurry should be part of our lifestyle. It's a part of the lifestyle of the world, because the world tolerates everything. Okay? Well, most things they tolerate. They don't tolerate believers, but it's another subject. So, yeah, such like near here, stat here in the chat, the fallen ones are homeless. They project this on mankind by oppressive systems and make people pay for their existence. But it's they that have no right to live on earth. That's the thing. That's why you need to pay rent. That's why you need to pay taxes. That's why the cost of living are so high, because the leaders of this world, they worship those fallen ones who are homeless. But now, look at this. The earth is our home. Okay? We are designed for the earth. So we have a natural right for relaxation, for a living, and for and to dwell on the earth. We have natural right to all of that. But now the oppressive systems of the world make you pay to be alive. They make you sweat and exhaust yourself for basic necessities: food, water, clothes, and a roof above your head. So look at this. You are native to the earth. But now you need to pay to remain alive on the earth. While those entities who shouldn't even be here, as well as that filthy offspring of theirs called the Nephilim, they're now the ones being fed. You need to exhaust yourself to get a paycheck at the end of the month, and all that stress, demons feed off it. So mankind is now feeding invaders at their own expense. The earth is our home, but now we are feeding the invaders. It's a very perverse situation. And how? And how does this continue? Because we do not agree with Christ. That means I'm talking about the human population in general. When Adam sinned and the Lord cursed the ground, he did it to protect Adam's descendants. The curse was that now there were thorns growing everywhere on the earth. There were thorns already, but now they were growing everywhere. Why? Because this forced the human population to be active. Because part of being in a fallen state is that mankind becomes lazy. Mankind becomes obsessed with control. They want to escape things. And because the earth now had thorns growing everywhere, they were obliged to be active. So it was God's provision to prevent complete retardation of the human species. But that curse has been reversed in Christ, the second Adam. And what the human population now has to do is commanded unto us to obey Christ, to walk in the blessing. All right? So, and here's the thing. What the Most High told Adam, that he will toil and sweat to eat bread, that's a consequence that would happen to his descendants. Because remember, Adam and Eve are the only two human beings. So they still could live for free by eating from the trees all over the earth. However, it's the descendants that became stuck in these oppressive systems where they need to toil and sweat to live, which isn't actually living. But those that walk by faith are able to overrule this in their daily life. And this is what Satan doesn't want to happen. And this is how those oppressive systems work. I already explained it in the beginning, but it comes down to this. Satan wants you in a cyclical way of thinking. It's very easy. The enemy wants you in a cyclical way of thinking. That's why religion speaks about cycles. Why? Because once you are in a cyclical way of thinking, you don't trust in God anymore. So now you want to have some control to manipulate the cycles of the universe, as it's called in paganism. And that's the only alternative Satan has to offer, which isn't really an alternative. It's just a scam, but the scam works. And before the Greek Empire, this scam was already working. But when the Greek Empire came, the scam became institutionalized worldwide. For example, let me for example, this is a pagan called Janus or Janus. January or Januarus is called after him. Hold on a minute. The Februas ritual was a fertility ritual in which men would, let's say the politicians of Rome would dress, they would undress themselves, run around town with some whips called the Februas, and they would hit women that passed by to pass on alleged good luck to the females. So you have a whole month dedicated to this thing called February. Then you have this demon over here. In the Hebrews call him Magog, which is the god of war. Because in March is when the troops would often march out to go to war. Then you had April. No, I'm not pointing this one yet. April was a month of fertility also. Then you had May. You had June, means the new sun, which refers to Apollo. Then you had Juliu, which means the sun line or the line strength of the sun, which refers to Apollo also. Then you had August, the exalted month. That's when the troops would return from war and awards would be given out. That's why in universities you often graduate in August. That's why in the northern hemisphere, August and July are the times when you have your summer vacation. You have September, when there was kind of a restoration. You had October, when you had the other pagan festivals beginning. You had November, in which it was in which the, how would I say, in which a kind of renewal took place. And in December, when you had the Christmas celebration, or Saturnalia in ancient Rome. And then you had the mid-winter fest with New Year's. Then you had January again. So, understand this. The calendar we use, the Roman calendar, is based on sun worship, and it comes from the Greeks because the Roman Empire was the renewed Greek Empire, and the people spoke Greek over there. The Roman gods are the Greek gods under a Latin name. So, what the enemy did since the Greek Empire is using, let's say, it's using the calendar to condition you in a psychological way. This is important for you to realize. The calendar we use today, the Roman calendar, You have two versions of it. You have the Gregorian calendar, and you also have a calendar that was used in Russia, but it's not in usage anymore, which was just 2 days behind. This calendar trains you psychologically to think in a cycle. And in the 19th century, the corporate world that was developed, which is the corporate world we now operate in, is based on this Roman calendar. That's why 9 to 5 and you have 2 or 3 weeks that you have for yourself around August. August is the exalted month. So, is there anything wrong with using the Roman calendar today? Well, there's nothing wrong with using the calendar because you're just counting the days. But realize that the calendar is used to condition you psychologically in a cyclical way of thinking. And the corporate world we have today, which has been established by the British Empire, the British Empire is gone, by the way. So this corporate world that's left keeps you in the cyclical way of thinking. Now, why a cyclical way of thinking? It is because a cyclical way of thinking is the only thing that's in harmony with the fallen mind of mankind. You get it? So let me say it one more time because it's important for you to understand this. A cyclical way of thinking is the only thinking that's in harmony with the fallen mind of mankind. The fallen mind of mankind thinks in opposites or in duality. So what matches duality? A cycle. So it matches the fallen mind of mankind. That's the type of mind Satan wants trapped in. And by making us comfortable operating in the fallen mind, he successfully keeps us away from renewing our mind. You get this? Do you understand what I've said until now? Because it's important for you to understand this before I continue. If you didn't understand it well, ask questions in the live chat. I'm waiting on you. Do you understand this? Okay. Now look. Once you train someone in a cyclical way of thinking, the first 12 years of their life, from the time they're a baby until they're 12, if you succeed in doing this, because it's at 12, 11, 12 that they, as you say, hit puberty, that their sexual development begins, you want them to be stuck to a cyclical way of thinking before their sexual development begins. You get it? Why? Because when the sexual development begins, it's the basis they receive before that sexual development that they will use sexually later on. Let me say it again. You may have to write this down. Everything you receive before puberty, that's before your sexual development begins. You're a sexual being anyway, but your sexual development, your puberty, starts at age 11, 12. Some have it early, like at age 10, but in your early teens, that's where your sexual development begins. Everything you received from birth till then will be the basis that you will use for your sexual development. And why is this important? It's because Satan wants to divert male sexual attention away from females and put it onto the demons. Satan wants men to have sexual longings for demons. Well, the demons are men, There are female Nephilim, but those are not even regarded much even in the paranormal. But how do you get men so far that they begin to lust or long sexually after demons? How do you do that? You do that by imprinting in their minds that life is short, that they're nothing without approval of society, and therefore they are in a hurry to achieve approval of society. And you tell them it's when you are approved by society that you are a real man, and it's then that you can have sexual expression and be joyful with your wife, children, and all. You get it? So you condition men to think this way. That's how they did it in ancient Greece. When the boys were around 7 years old, they removed them from their parents and put them in camps. That's why in British English the word camp also means that something has a homosexual vibe. Because in ancient times they used those camps to groom the male children into homosexuality. Yes, this is called, they have a fancy word for it. I'm not sure if it's pedestry, but anyway, it's bad. But that's what they did back then. So the men, the young boys now grew up with only men around them. And you have those older strange men who were the wizards and the warlocks that taught them that they had to earn to be a man. And they had to spend days hiking with, it was like a militarized train. They had to spend days hiking. They had to earn food. They had to either pay through labor or sexual or committing sexual acts with other men to get their needs met, and then they had to serve in the military. The Greeks from Athens were a bit more calm in this, but Sparta was very rough. There were some differences in how they did it, but that's how it went. And the boys that became men, during their sexual development, they were kept away from women. And it's only after age 25 that they were allowed to show interest in the opposite sex. So what happened? They disrupted the sexual development of the boys. Why? By disrupting the sexual development, they can't function as God intended them to be. They turned them into sodomites without the boys being aware of it. In ancient times, this was open. Okay? When they were on those camps somewhere in Greece, and they wanted to have food, they had to work for it. They had one of the older boys who was a teenager who had some cash, and the older guy would ask the younger guys to do a fellatio onto him and other sexual acts, and the younger kids would get some money to pay food. That's such things they did. So in ancient times, they did literally turn them into sodomites. Over time, let's say when the Greek Empire was established worldwide, they couldn't do this so openly. So now they had to do it in the culture. So when Christ walked the earth, it's that culture that was around. Why? Because the enemy doesn't want men to invest sexually in their wives. They don't. He wants men to only sleep with women when it comes to producing babies, because babies keep the human species going. That's the only thing Satan tolerates. He wants men to give all their sexual strength to evil spirits. Now, evil spirits don't have physical bodies to receive the sexual strength, so what happens? They condition men to the cyclical way of thinking to adopt to role models that allegedly will bring them security. So get it straight. They condition men to adopt to role models. And those role models center around Apollo. And then they condition men, this is how you achieve becoming like that role model. And you have to achieve this model by age 25, or some say at age 20. And at age 40, you should be like this. So there you have been conditioned into a cycle that they ought to follow. And the moment you have this into men, you can get it out, but it's going to take a bit to get it out of your thinking. But that's what they do. So now you have men. This is how it went in ancient times, and it still continues till this day. But today the method is a bit more refined. It still happens that on school camps they sodomize boys covertly, but they can't do it as mainstream openly anymore. So they do it through the media, through Hollywood, through Disney. They put this imprint in the mind of a man that he needs to earn to be a man. So those role models that they give to men keep them trapped in this cyclical thinking. And what happens? They provide those success stories of men that manage to comply with the cycle, and those are the what they call the alpha males. Those are the men that look like Apollo in character. In character, I said, because not everyone has blonde hair and blue eyes. So you have men who are considered the alpha males that are the success stories. They get along with the cycle. Then you have the beta males who feel bad about themselves because they are not like those alpha males. And you have trannies, which are fake women that are put around those alpha males to trick the population into thinking that those alpha males are sexually successful. You get this? So now the men that they consider the beta males think, okay, if I'm like that alpha male, it will be good. And that's how the man is trapped in a cycle, and the demons begin to drain them. So by the time they are married and they have families, they are dysfunctional to operate as fathers and husbands, because in their mind they're still stuck with the alpha male, or having to be approved by an alpha male figure. That's sodomy. That's mental sodomy they've been conditioned into. So this cyclical way of thinking is to disrupt the sexual development of men, because Satan wants to turn all men into sodomites, just like he's a sodomite. Now, he will not get every man to long for the butthole of another man. That's not going to happen. But what he can do is to have his servants, the wizards, construct society in such a way that men are conditioned in mental sodomy, which will lead to energetic sodomy, because this will hinder the well-functioning of the male in society. And militarism is one of the main institutions. Also, the military, better said. Militarism is the philosophy that justifies the military. The military is the main institution that Satan uses to promote mental and energetic sodomy in the human species. Today, the whole idea of feminism and female empowerment is to reduce the military institutions, because the military institutions played out the role way too good, so now they're exposed. So now they need something else to drain the men, and that's what's going on. So why is it important to understand this? Once you understand that the paranormal is after the power of sex, which comes from men, once you know that they want to distort masculinity to promote mental sodomy, you know now what the end goal is. The end goal is to trap men in mental sodomy so that you will only have dysfunctional families with traumatized children turned into traumatized adults of which demons can feed. And you want some of those sodomite men to be even pastors to give off weird vibes to believers who want to know the truth. And that's what they're doing in pagan Christianity. So, all paranormal patterns center around enforcing mental sodomy on men. That is what it's about. And all timing within those patterns is to cause frustration in you. But because society embraces those patterns so much, you think that those patterns are natural while they are not. Hold on, someone asked a question. RA, I have a scenario. If you were being lynched by the demonic hive mind, but were also new in the faith, would your focus be on growing in Christ or decreeing sandbag prayers, deliverance? Well, when your focus is on growing in Christ, you're already doing the right thing. And when you decree sandbag prayers, you're doing it because you are in agreement with Christ. So growing in Christ and decreeing sandbag prayers, they go hand in hand. So let me say it like this. Walking by faith implies that you also recognize the patterns and the timing in which they occur. I just explained onto you what the patterns are all meant for and why society enables those patterns. It all begins with having you cling onto this typical way of thinking. And with this typical way of thinking, you have this, how do I say it in English? This starts to me, this duality of child versus adult. Biologically, you are a child until ages, I believe somewhere like age 10. Then you become a teenager. So you have biological ways to measure when someone's a child or not. So you have biological childhood, and then you have biological adulthood. But what the world is longing for is mental adulthood. And everything doesn't line up with mental adulthood, they consider childish. But this thing that they long for, that they call adulthood, is a hoax. It has nothing to do with your bodily nor mental development. It has to do with a cyclical way of thinking. A dichotomy, yes. So this dichotomy between child and adult, or child versus adult, however you want to call it, it's a cyclical way of perceiving things. It appears natural until you look close enough at it. When you are a child, you can't do anything on your own. That's obvious. When you're an adult, you can do more. That's the difference. But they want to attach additional value to this thing called adulthood. And now they tell people you need to meet these criteria to be an adult. If you don't meet this criteria, that means you're lacking behind. They tell people this. And what happens now, because human beings cling onto harmony and they want to get along with one another, they get along with the expectations. And when the expectations are proven not to work, because they've invested so much in it, now they want an explanation. So the explanation will be this dichotomy between child and adult, And people will be sad, if you haven't succeeded yet, it's because you're still childish. And later in time, you can say, well, you need to allow someone to be a child. What does it mean to allow someone to be a child? You're a child anyway. And then later, adult life begins. It all has to do with cyclical expectations that society expects of you. So many of us are very familiar with those paranormal patterns already. And it's this familiarity that we need to unlearn. So this is about patterns. Okay? Now I'm going to move towards timing and seeing timing in situations and how to look at the bigger picture or to put things in context. So does everyone understand how it works with paranormal patterns? Yes or no? Let me know in the live chat. So, about timing, understand this. You are in this mortal body for a moment. Then the body expires, you go to Sheol, and when Christ returns, you're out of Sheol and you're resurrected. So, everything you achieve on earth before Christ returns has to be achieved while you're in the body. So the enemy knows that he needs to catch you while you're still a child. So he wants to capture your mind when you're still a child to cling you to this cyclical way of thinking. So because this will mess up your sexual development, and this will lead to dysfunction in your adult life. And now that there is dysfunction in your adult life on a social level, he wants to hinder you from finding out what the defect is. So you wouldn't find the solution, which is to agree with Christ. So anytime in your life you come close to the solution, demons sound the alarm. And when they sound the alarm, the demonic principalities, which are the demonic governments that Satan set up in the paranormal, they now come with a plan to very quickly distract you. And they will distract you through other people. Why? Because when you get close to the solution, you'll be free from the patterns and cycles. And they want you back in a pattern. That's why you have the distraction. Distraction is only sent to you when you're close to the solution. So, let me give an example now. You are, let me say like this, you are in your 30s, you were working full-time since you were 19, so you thought, you know what, I want this to stop. I want to spend more time with my family, I want to spend more time doing other stuff. You have some money on your savings account, so you think, you know what, let me invest in stock, or let me invest in purchase some shares. Let me do something to generate multiple income so I won't be dependent on just going to this job all the time. If you decide I want to look for other options, demons don't really care, because demons think, well, this guy wants other options, but what does he know? And demons already have distractions in place. He has charlatans that will scam you, so they have a whole firewall built to keep you trapped in being a wage slave. But let's say now one day you begin to watch a YouTube channel that teaches you to decree and declare. And you begin to do this. When you begin to do this, what you emit as a spirit being changes. So the demons are going to notice it. And then the demons are going to realize, oh, okay, that's James over there. Why is James so happy? Why is he decreeing and declaring? It shouldn't be decreeing and declaring, because if he begins to decree and declare, sooner or later he realize that he needs to be in agreement with Christ. And once that happens, we have a big problem here. So now the demons think, oh dear, this James has been following our program for 35 years. Why does he want to mess up things now? Why can't he just be happy with being a wage slave and earning his living like everyone else? So the demons then think, you know what? He wants to decree and declare, we're going to send him an invitation to some Babylon church, where you have a pagan pastor decreeing and declaring, but that pastor is a wizard. So now the demons send someone to guide him in his walk by faith, but this individual is not sent by God. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing. So now James has to sit down and think, hold on a minute. I was never approached by any church. I used to go to church when I was a kid together with grandma. But ever since, none of the churches bothered with me. And 2 weeks ago, out of the blue, I encountered those people that kept telling me, come to our church, we are very different than all the others. And now James was thinking, why now? And James sits back, he looks at the situation and realizes, 3 months ago, I figured out that I can decree and declare in Christ's name. And I began to do it, and it had a good effect on me. Suddenly I have this invitation to join this church. Hold on a minute. Why does that happen now? What's going on? There's a paranormal timing. And this timing is to hinder him from renewing his mind. Because decreeing and declaring without being in agreement with Christ can be dangerous. But if you do it and things don't work out, you want to know why, and you realize you need to align yourself with Christ. So demons don't want this to happen, so they come with a counterfeit to keep you trapped, to keep you away from doing God's will. That's a paranormal timing. Because now, this James is pushed back into a pattern, which is going to church every Sunday, and he'll be trained again by that church to think in a cyclical manner. So that's how you discern the timing. Okay, let's give another example. Let's say you still have your wisdom teeth. A lot of folks get their wisdom teeth removed early on. But let's say your wisdom teeth grew in your mouth and they didn't bother you. Okay, suddenly you have toothache once your wisdom teeth is hurting. And it hinders you from sleeping, so you have to take paracetamol just to get to sleep. And you now have an appointment at the hospital to remove your wisdom teeth. And after that, it's over. But then someone else asks you, John, you're 40, right? John said, I'm 41. Then someone tells him, but John, how come your wisdom teeth began to cause you difficulty right now? They weren't that well placed in your mouth. They didn't cause any disruption in your dental arch. Why is it that right now your wisdom teeth had to be removed? It wasn't a problem that the wisdom teeth had to be removed, but why did the issue come up now? And then John looks at the situation and realizes, okay, this is a bit weird. And then John realized, hold on a minute. It's when I began to pray for deliverance that suddenly I had my wisdom teeth became to age, to cause pain in my mouth. And because of it, I couldn't sleep well. And because I couldn't sleep well, I forgot to pray. Aha! John realized, now that the wisdom tooth are removed, demons can't provoke them anymore to distract me. And now John realized, evil spirits had access to me because I still had a cyclical way of thinking. And they used a cyclical way of thinking to cause a shock in my energy field, which affect my wisdom teeth. But now they can't do that anymore because I don't have any wisdom teeth anymore. They used those wisdom teeth as a distraction. Now, the wisdom teeth now had to be removed. So that was a physical consequence of the attack on John. So John had to deal with the attack. But he realized that the attack was a distraction. And that is what you believer need to realize. There will be attacks on you when you walk by faith. And you'll have to deal with the attacks, especially when the attacks have a physical outworking on you. But don't be too focused on dealing with the physical outworking that you don't look at the bigger picture to see what's happening. Because when you do that, the distraction has worked. There are people who missed out on their deliverance and they died before their time without reaching any of their potential because anytime they were close to their deliverance, tragedy hits them. Either they had a car accident or one of their relatives got cancer out of the blue. Anytime they're about to be delivered, now something bad happens around them that took their attention away from renewing their mind. So whenever tragedies occur, whether it's accidents or whatever, just look at when it happens. Freshing Throne 21, Christ said you will have tribulation. He said it to believers. So attacks will come. They will. The point is, are you walking by faith to anticipate and to overcome and overrule what will come? That's the real question. So, when something happens around you that's tragic or very disturbing or very disruptive, look at what happened several days before, or look at what you were doing at the time. Chances are big that you are heading towards greatness or you're about to have big influence and the attack came to keep you trapped in a pattern. I'm going to use another example now. I use an example quite a lot, so it should be very clear now, but I'm going to use example again because a common thing that often happens is as follows. This happens to young men especially. Some of you are in your 40s already, so this may not be used on you that much. It can be used on you also, but it happens to young men especially. We're just at the end of their teenage years or in the early 20s. So you have this guy, I'm going to give a parable now. His name is Frank. And Frank works at the gas station. He doesn't earn that much money. And at the gas station, one day he meets this redhead girl who falls in love with him. And he is fine with it. And they get married within maybe 8 months. They have the blessing of the family. They had a wonderful wedding. And later, this Frank realized that, hold on a minute, I've been married for 10 years now. I was 19 when I met my wife. I'm now 29. We have 2 daughters. One is 8 years old, the other 5. I love my daughters, I love my family, but something is missing. He realizes something is wrong. And then, when this same Frank becomes 35, when he turns 25, he becomes depressed. He begins to feel as if he has missed out on a lot. And it's then that one day at a family meeting, well, I won't really call it a meeting because one of the aunts of Frank passed away. She was in her 80s already. She had liver cancer, so it was very, very sad moment. It was there that one of the siblings of Frank told Frank, did you get involved with painting Chinese sceneries? And Frank looks at them and says, what? Chinese sceneries? What are you talking about, man? And then the guy said, when you were 15, you were so into painting Chinese sceneries. You even learned some basic Chinese on your own. Everyone was impressed by it. You were working at a gas station just to earn some money for you to go to some college because you wanted to study sinology, Chinese studies. It's then that at age 35 that Frank realized, true. I wanted to enroll at age 21. I want to work for 2 more years at the gas station to be able to pay my tuitions. And it's then that this Jack, no, I use Frank as parallel. Okay, it's then that this Frank realized, I know now what happened. I was about to get a breakthrough financially, economically, and I was about to have a big influence with my gift. Right at that time, when I was saving money to go for my dream and to get influence, my wife walked into my life. I have had 2 children, I'm happy with them. But during the early years of our marriage, when I wanted to attend college part-time, she always discouraged me. She always kept reminding me that we had bills to pay and all of that. And this is what Frank was saying to himself, and she is still bitter on her father. She still has father issues, even though she's married with me, who's loyal. And it's then that it got through to Frank that his wife, even though she brought him 2 loving daughters that he loved, his wife hindered him in reaching his potential. It was not too late for Frank. He could still do Chinese studies part-time, or he could still do all of that. But he realized that over a decade of influence was taken away from him by the fact that he got involved with that woman who turned into his wife. And when Frank began to think about all of this, he realized also that his wife had never really supported him in his ambitions, and that she was always talking about herself. She was always in some emotional turmoil. He realized that he was being drained emotionally and mentally for the past 16 years. So Frank didn't want to get a divorce because he didn't want his daughters to be affected by the divorce, but he realized, okay, I need to make plain now to my wife, I'm going for my dream. And if she wants to hinder it, then this thing needs to be over. What happened there? I know this is a long parable, but I'm giving a detailed parable to explain this on to you. There are people pushed into your life not by the Most High, but by the paranormal. Why? Because unclean spirits want to distract you from your potential. Unclean spirits see your potential clearly. They see what you're capable of. They don't want you to know what you're capable of. So they will distract you either with violence from other people, and when that doesn't work or when that's not effective, they will come with counterfeit blessings to you. And it doesn't have to be a paranormally arranged marriage, like an example I just gave onto you. It can be certain friendships, or it can be a job. It can be that you finished college, you're about to pick up your diploma, and right before you pick up your diploma, you received a job offer. It paid well, and you rolled into the job, and you had loving colleagues, you had very fun colleagues, they support one another, and you think, whoa, this is it. And now a decade later, you realize that you are drained, you're tired often, you have health issues because you've been working full-time for so long. And now you think about it, this job was not a good idea. But at the time, when you were graduating college, it appeared like the best thing ever. Okay? Because you thought, okay, I'm completing college, so the purpose is for me to get a job. And a lot of college students had difficulty getting a job, so when a job was handed out to you, just like you thought, oh, praise the Lord. You didn't sit down, pray about the matter, and examine the context. You didn't even examine the context of the corporation. You didn't look at the bigger picture. And because of that, you fell for a trap that drained you for a decade. And now you need years to recover from the decade you've been drained by working so much. So now 1.5 decades has been robbed from you by unclean spirits. That is how they do it. I had people that I encountered. For example, I go to the supermarket, or I go to town, or I'm in the train, or I'm transferring at the public transport. I've been through me encountering certain people over and over again. And eventually, I befriended those people because I thought, okay, this is maybe a sign from God. It's only later that I realized that it wasn't God, it was demons doing that. It was demons manipulating the circumstances so that I would keep encountering certain people. Why? Because those people were people that didn't look for any solutions. Those people were, if you, as it would say in church, were put on my path by evil spirits to hinder me. I didn't really go too much after those people because I was focused on Christ. But it's later I realized, those people were sent to hinder me. And here's how you recognize that someone was sent your way to hinder you. If you remain Christ-centered and you keep breaking through barriers anyway, you'll notice some of those people, you don't encounter them anymore. Or they stop answering your text messages, or they stop answering you completely. Out of the blue, they forget about you. When you encounter them, you say hi, they say hi to you as if they have no problem with you, but they just can't talk to you. They're always busy, or they always forget to answer you. What's going on? Those people were used by unclean spirits to hinder you. There are people I encountered later on that had no problem with me, but they couldn't even stand still for 1 minute and have a conversation with me. They were so busy. It was the Holy Spirit now pushing them away. Earlier when they came, it was demons sending them. I didn't fall for it. And now the Holy Spirit confirms it by them not being able to be in the blessed presence as around me. Believers, you need to learn to look at the timing of stuff. Not everyone that walks into your life is sent by God. In those Babylon churches, they teach you that sometimes God sends people your way for you to minister unto them because they need you. And it sounds very good, but hold on a minute. They need Christ. You hear me? They need Christ. If they are not willing to submit unto Christ, why would Christ charge you with them if they're not willing to obey Him? Who is the solution? Christ is the solution. So if they don't want the solution, that means they're not into solutions at all. And if they're not into solutions at all, that means that they're only fleeing. And because they're only fleeing, eventually they will become enablers, or in the worst case scenario, perpetrators. So why would God charge you to look after enablers of evil? Why would God do that? He will not. Satan will do it. And he will use those false prophets and those Babylon churches to convince you that it's God sending those people so that you can shine your light onto them. It sounds all good. It may even sound biblical, but it's not true. You only look at the context and you figure out very quickly, this ain't right. This is not from God. So, believers, whatever happens around you, look at the timing. Because it's when you look at the timing that you will realize, no, not going to happen, Satan, not going to happen this time. I don't fall for it. I'm going to give an example of something I experienced. Well, I don't want to make these live streams about me. But because it's me giving them and I have experience with these demonic attacks, I'm going to give you one example. There was this, I was at the library. I was 20 years old. Yes, I was 20. And I just prayed unto the Lord for a wife. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to pray for it. And I'm going to trust the Lord for it to work out. A week later, I felt the urge to go to the library. I was in the train, heading towards Schiedam, about to go home. So I thought, you know what, let me go to the library, because sometimes I went to the library after getting out of class. It was during my freshman year at college. So I thought, okay, I can go to the library today, what's the big problem? At the library, I met this high school girl who was in the last year of high school. She was 18 years at the time. So she was someone that attended church. She attended a Reformed Christian school. So I thought, okay, I'm open. This may be of God. But very soon I realized this individual has very weird thinking patterns. Her parents go to church. But when I met her parents, the mother just said plainly that she doesn't really have trust in God. And I kind of, in my mind, I kind of fell back thinking, what? You call yourself a Christian, call yourself a believer, but you don't trust God? And this woman was quite fearful all the time. So after a while, I was thinking, enough. When something is so tensed with negativity, I'm thinking, I'm done. Several years later, I encountered the same individual. We just had a few conversations online, and one day, and suddenly this individual just unfriended me out of the blue. And you know what I did? I just kept moving on. And there was another believer told me, Rashid, people that just leave you like that, they're not good for you. And it's after a year of that incident that I looked back onto my life at the time, that I realized, hold on a minute. At around age 19, age 20, I overcame some generational curses that were haunting me. And then I realized, so that time I wanted to go to the library, it was really a setup. I figured it out later. When I re-encountered individuals several years later, I remembered that one of her classmates that she went to high school with, who also ended up doing the same bachelor's as I did, told me, maybe one day you two will be together again. In my spirit, I heard, no. It was Holy Spirit revealing unto me, So then I realized that it was an unclean spirit suggesting an outcome that was not God's will. And because I remained focused on Christ, eventually it didn't work. So why am I sharing this experience of mine? It's because when you don't look at the context, you will fall for things. Now look, I'm not going to blame you, because most of you were never taught to look at the context. I wasn't either. It's because I had some bad paranormal experiences while growing up, because I had generational curses coming after me that I realized I had to be alert. And it's there that I developed the attitude of looking at the bigger picture. And I was never the type of man, not even during my teenage years, I expected evil. I didn't just expect bad things from other people. But I realized over time that people, even if they don't have bad intentions, evil spirits can use them. And similar things to what I just shared happens, but in different ways, over and over again. It's only since about 2 years that it stopped happening. Praise the Lord. So unclean spirits were pushing people of the opposite sex my way all the time, but every time one of them disappeared, another one came in their place. It was as if I wasn't granted any ease. It was as if the unclean spirit was so desperate to trap me in negative relationships. That's why I'm telling you, believers, to trust God and always keep your eyes open. Because a distraction is to keep you away from a specific outcome. There's an outcome that evil spirits want to hinder. And I understand now what the outcome was. At age 22, I began this YouTube channel. And look at what happened to this channel. Look at how many people this channel reached. You look at the big following I got to this channel. That following, I have to teach people about Christ because I'm not here for fame. That was the outcome evil spirits want to prevent. That is the outcome. So that's why I had all those weird people wanting to get close to me, and I didn't realize what was happening at the time. And again, I trust God with every aspect of my life. I don't rush anything. I don't even look at age because I see through a lot. And God himself revealed more things unto me. That everything's working out fine anyway, so I keep walking by faith. So, with me, that was the thing the enemy was attempting to do to keep me away from doing this ministry. I had no intention of reaching so many people with spiritual messages on YouTube. I didn't. It came into being because that was God's will for me. Evil spirits were aware of God's plan before I was, because God didn't tell me that this is what he wanted me to do. So the evil spirits were already taking actions to hinder what was about to happen. So, understand that anytime you are breaking through, the paranormal will come with some type of distraction to hinder you. And can come packaged as violence. Something doesn't like you, or suddenly your landlord claims you didn't pay any rent even though you did. It can come in the form of violence. That also happens, but it also can come in a form of a counterfeit blessing. And here's the thing. It's when you trust God and walk by faith that these things come. If you're just a churchgoer, you seldom pray, you don't walk by faith, you don't want to overcome sickness, you don't want to cast out devils. If you're just a plain churchgoer who doesn't know anything, then evil spirits don't really care about distracting you, because they know you're stuck anyway. What they may do is make things more easy on you. But it's when you're doing God's will that you get all kinds of weird people popping up here and there. And not only of the opposite sex. I also had people that so-called wanted to know about Christ, but they really had an agenda to lure me into a cult. I had that happen too. I had various things happening out of the blue that didn't add up, and I later saw it was a paranormal thing. Look, again, I don't want to make this live stream about me. Believer, from experience, I'm telling you, look at the timing when things happen. If needed, pick up a sheet of paper and a pen and begin to write down what has happened lately. Write down what else was going on. And when you see a pattern in your notes, don't fool yourself. It is a pattern. If you are stuck in a pattern already, you have a lot of ease. Because demons know that the pattern is going to wear you out anyway, and you will not be fruitful for the kingdom of God. They know it. So why would they bother attacking you if you will contribute to their agenda anyway? That's why I'm telling you the following, believer. And this is something I also discussed with a fellow believer today who's from Britain. Whenever you see someone in your neighborhood or in your town or anyway in your environment suddenly popping up as a success, ask yourself who's behind that individual. Because as I mentioned before, there are times evil spirits will promote someone without someone being aware of it. The demons will do it just to distract others from what's really going on. It can be that violence has increased in a community. And when people are aware that violence has increased, they want a solution. So to prevent people from realizing that violence has increased, you suddenly have this hip-hop artist or this rapper or this climate guru, and I'm going to mention names, that pops up, that becomes a hype. And then you think, okay, this rapper just appeared and now he's very successful, or this climate guru is talking about the importance of climate change out of the blue. Just like that, 2-3 months ago, nobody knew who this guy or who this girl is. Began to ask them, okay, this hype around this individual popped up. Who is behind it? And when you realize it's not from God, then you know it's a distraction. And then you go into prayer, and sooner or later you begin to see what's really going on in the community. See it like this. The enemy doesn't really have anything to offer in the long run. He wants to offer you 1 cent, while God has, well, let's say that God has 100,000 euros for you. This is not a euro, by the way. This is Korean currency, which isn't worth almost anything around here in Europe. But let's say God wants you to have 100,000 euros. This is a metaphor, okay, that I'm using. God wants you to have 100,000. God wants to give you bars of gold and bars of silver. The enemy comes with fake silver coins to get your attention. And because he comes with the fake silver coins and he rings it all the time, this gets your attention. And you see, to you it looks like silver and it's glittering and it makes sound, so you think, oh, this is the real deal. And now you focus on the fake silver. It's only later you're going to figure out, hold on a minute, it's not real silver. It's not glittering anymore. Oh, it's just cheap metal. But by the time you realize it's just cheap metal, you've missed the bar of gold that was right in front of you all the time. That is how the enemy works. That's how he does it. There's another way the enemy works. And look at timing also. When you are breaking through, because you need to realize the following. These things only come after you or happen to you when you're walking by faith, when you're breaking through. If you're just a churchgoer, you'll be at ease. You're stuck in a pattern that will drain you and you'll die before your time. You won't have any influence, neither will you be able to break through anything, so you'll be in that cycle and you're gone. Your life is wasted. But if you really walk by faith, you will have all kinds of distractions and attacks and hinder coming from here and there. What the enemy often does is right in the moment that you're recovering from an attack, he sends people your way that will begin to brag about their blessings. So you may have gone through a financial attack that almost made you homeless, and now that you're recovering from it, suddenly you have all those people calling you. They never call you. And then they're not used to call you to ask how you are, but suddenly they're calling you and they're telling you about the raise they had at the job, or they tell you about that some of them won the lottery, So now you have all those people that suddenly have financial ease talk to you about it. Why does the enemy do this? You just overcame a financial attack. You're still alive. You're recovering. And while you're recovering, the enemy wants you to feel guilty so that you won't heal properly. That's why he sends people your way that begin to brag about their fake blessings. Those are not real blessings. Those people think those things are blessings, but they're not. So now the enemy sends people to brag about their fake blessings to let you think that those people are really blessed and you're not, even though you just overcame a financial attack. So beware of people that pop up out of the blue sharing good news with you. If people pop out of the blue begin to share good news with you, it's great that they have good news. Be happy for them. But why now? And how come it's happening at the moment? When you ask those two questions, you realize, the enemy wants me to feel bad about myself. That's why I'm exposed to the so-called good things that are happening in other people's lives. So timing is everything for the evil spirits. And timing is also important for you. That's why you ought to be delivered from a cyclical way of thinking. That's why you ought to let go of the expectations of society. And that's why you need to learn to see things coming. Now that you know what the purpose of those patterns and cycles are, whenever something happens, ask yourself one thing. Is this going to glorify Christ? If it does, then it's fine. If it doesn't, ask yourself the second question. If this does not glorify Christ, how does it come near me now? You know why. The why is it's not glorifying Christ, so something wants to keep Christ's glory out. So you know the why, then ask how. And when you see the how, you'll see the open door and you'll see the pattern the enemy wants to push you in. Because every distraction and every attack of the enemy is to get you stuck in a pattern or a cycle. Because in a pattern or a cycle, you can't walk by faith and you can't be effective. So, I hope this is clear. Do you understand why timing is important? Do you also understand now why God will not reveal everything unto you? Just let me know in the live chat. Do you understand the importance of checking the timing? Let me know. I'm waiting. There is a delay of 20 or 30 seconds in this audio, in the live stream. I don't know why. I still didn't manage to fix it, but that's why. Okay, someone understands it. Okay, so you guys understand it. So how do you outsmart patterns and cycles? Very easy. Just disengage. Let me explain. You have your smartphone. Someone out of the blue calls you. You look at the number and you think, huh? I don't know this number. Hello? Who is it? Hey, Rashid. It's me, Bart. I'm just making up a name. And you think, Bart who? Oh, me, Bart. We used to go to the basketball club together. I'm just making something up there. And then it clicks in your mind, well, hold on a minute. I haven't seen this guy for 5 years. Why is he just calling me right now as if we've been hanging out for the last times? Then I think, okay, hey Bart, nice to talk to you, but I need to go to work now. So I just hang up I disengage and I'm going to think, okay, why is Bart calling me? Then I'm going to look around, okay, what's going on around me? Okay, I have a part-time job, I have income, I don't have any sickness, I don't have any attacks happening to me lately. Ah, oh. Now I know what's going on. I didn't receive any attacks lately. So the enemy is now looking for another way to distract me. For some reason, that individual, for the past 5 years, they forgot about me, and suddenly they were inspired by evil spirits to call me. And I remember this Bart. This Bart was always very, how would I say, was very chaotic in his thinking, didn't think clear. And when I spoke to him on the phone, he sounded the same way. So I know, I know now. You try to lure me into a trap. So I began to praise the Lord. I decree and declare that the blessings, as usual, I've disengaged, I've outsmarted the pattern. So the timing was obvious that it was not from God, and I outsmarted being stuck in the pattern because I disengaged. And that is what believers ought to do. So if people suddenly show interest in you, always ask why. Okay, that's one thing. And here's another thing. If, for example, you're about to get a job, but people want to screen your past and they keep asking for references. Okay, a lot of jobs do that. But if you notice that there is some frustration in completing the screening, for example, know that it's a paranormal thing happening. It's something to make you stressed. That is what's about. That's it. So the timing is everything. And once you see the timing, you won't be stressed because you see that it's not it's a paranormal. It is a paranormal thing behind it. You'll see the pattern, and once you see the pattern, it's over. The spell doesn't work on you anymore. It doesn't. And when the spell doesn't work on you anymore, you've overcome. And that is what believers ought to do, to outsmart patterns and paranormal timing. Another thing for you to watch out for is the following. People that just want your attention to feel good about themselves. I've spoken about that before. Such people, do not remain around them for too long. They're clinging onto you, will bind you, and these evil spirits push them on you to keep you trapped. So, that is all I have for this live stream. So this live stream is not going to be very long. I'm going to shut it down now so that those that watch it back can make notes. I don't want to make this live stream too long. Just realize, believers, that timing is everything when it comes to recognizing the enemy's steps towards you. And sometimes it can save your life or even the life of those around you. Because if, for example, you have a relative that's under psychic violence, you recognizing it on time can save the life of that relative. There are people that died before their time because their environment was not alert to what's going on. There are people that died of accidents, sickness, or suicide, wherever, because people around them didn't pay attention. So to pay attention to the timing is life-saving. It can prevent and redeem a lot. Well, that's it for now. Keep agreeing with Christ and be at peace.